Millions watched in disbelief as Oprah Winfrey took the stage on her popular TV show and boldly declared, "Donald Trump was America's biggest mistake." Within hours, Karoline Leavitt, the fiery young voice of conservatives, fired back fiercely on Fox News, issuing a challenge that shocked the nation. "Oprah made the wrong enemy. I'll debate her anytime, anywhere." CNN quickly announced a primetime showdown. With America divided, families glued to their TV sets wondered, could a 27-year-old conservative really take down an iconic TV legend like Oprah? The nation held its breath. No one knew what would happen next. It started like any other episode of Daily Talk. The music played, the lights came up, and then there she was, Oprah Winfrey, calm, poised. But something in her eyes was sharper than usual, and within seconds America knew why. She didn't warm up, no light banter, no gentle lead-in. Instead, bam. "Donald Trump is the worst disaster in American history." The crowd gasped, then erupted. Applause thundered across the studio like a shot. Oprah's tone, dead serious. Her words, a missile aimed straight at the heart of the conservative movement. And she was just getting started. She leaned forward, her voice like a blade. She called Trump's immigration policy inhumane, cruel, and designed to rip families apart. Then with a flash of sarcasm, she smirked and took a jab at something no one expected: the Trump marriage. "A media charade," she scoffed. "A publicity act dressed as a relationship." The audience exploded again. Cheers, whistles, standing ovation. People shouting, "Say it louder," while others fanned themselves like they'd witnessed gospel truth. In that moment, Oprah wasn't just speaking, she was commanding. And America was watching. Millions of viewers from coast to coast sat up stunned. Seniors in Ohio stared at their screens. Veterans in Florida leaned closer. Retirees in Arizona raised their eyebrows. Oprah Winfrey, America's TV queen, was launching a full-blown assault on Donald J. Trump. And no topic was off limits. But behind the applause, something was stirring. Because while Oprah soaked in her standing ovation, she had no idea who was already getting ready to answer back. No idea that Karoline Leavitt, the bold young White House press secretary, was already on the phone with Fox News producers. No idea that her team had just cleared airtime. No idea that a storm was coming. But one thing was clear: Oprah had lit the match, and across the country a fire had just begun to burn. Because when you speak that boldly, that publicly, when you mock a former president, his policies, and even his marriage, you better be ready for what comes next. But Oprah wasn't ready. Not for this. Because the person stepping into the arena next wasn't another celebrity. She wasn't a talk show rival. She wasn't interested in feelings or applause. She was 27 years old. She wore a black suit, carried a folder full of facts, and had one mission: defend Donald Trump and bring the heat. And when Karoline Leavitt stepped in front of that Fox News camera just hours later, she wasn't smiling. She was locked in. And the next 48 hours would change everything. The applause from Oprah's stage hadn't even faded when Fox News went red alert. Breaking, a live feed, a serious face. Anchor. Laura Bennett looked straight into the camera, voice steady but urgent. "Ladies and gentlemen," she said, "we now go live to White House Press Secretary Karoline Leavitt, responding directly to Oprah Winfrey's attack on President Trump." The screen split. And there she was, Karoline. Black suit, calm jawline, eyes like fire. No notes, no hesitation. She didn't wait for a question. Oprah Winfrey just made the biggest mistake of her life. Boom. Across America, jaws dropped. In Texas, diners in Ohio, living rooms in church basements, from Georgia to Montana, viewers leaned forward. She picked the wrong man. She picked the wrong fight. And I'm here to tell her anytime, anywhere, I'll meet her on a stage and expose the truth. Laura Bennett blinked. Even she looked a little stunned. Karoline didn't pause. You don't get to mock a president who put Americans first. You don't get to attack his policies, his family, and his name without someone stepping up and answering back. And I'm that someone. It was a challenge, a warning, and within minutes it was a movement. Twitter lit up like a wildfire. Hashtags exploded. Hashtag Karoline strikes back. Oprah vs. Karoline. Defend Trump. Now radio stations rang off the hook. Fox reran the clip on a loop. Trump supporters shouted, "That's our girl." Even independents paused and said, "Wow, she's not messing around." Across the aisle, CNN executives huddled in silence. Someone finally said, "We need to put this on air." And just like that, it happened. CNN issued a formal invitation, a live primetime debate between Oprah Winfrey and Karoline Leavitt. No scripts, no filters. One night, one stage. The title, Tonight Debate, America Divided. When Oprah's team accepted within the hour, it was official. The showdown was on. Across the country, plans changed. Churches shifted bingo night. Veteran halls pulled out big screens. Grandkids were told, "Quiet down, this is history." America was bracing for a fight not of fists but of words, of fire, of truth. And Karoline, she didn't blink. That same night she walked into her office in D.C., tossed her jacket on a chair, and began prepping with military precision. ICE deportation data, job reports from the Department of Labor, small business recovery under Trump. Her team knew the stakes. She knew them better. This wasn't just a debate. This was war. And seniors across America, people who had watched their values mocked for years, suddenly had someone who spoke not with fear, but with fire. They watched her not as a kid on TV, but as someone who could go toe-to-toe with the cultural elite and not back down an inch. Meanwhile, Oprah appeared calm. She smiled for cameras outside her Chicago studio. "I welcome the discussion," she said. "We need truth. We need unity." But behind her calm words, people noticed it. Her bodyguard stayed closer. Her publicist hovered tighter. Because this wasn't another celebrity interview. This was Karoline Leavitt, and Karoline wasn't here to chat. She was here to fight. The next day, Fox News ran a poll. Who do you support heading into the debate? Karoline led by 12 points. Among voters aged 65 and older, she was up by 27. The reason? Simple. She was clear. She was fast. And she was fearless. In coffee shops in Michigan, folks pointed at the TV and said, "She talks like us." At barber shops in Tennessee, finally, someone with backbone. In veterans' homes in Nebraska, she's not afraid of Oprah. God bless her. Back in Washington, Karoline prepped harder. She wasn't rehearsing emotion. She was rehearsing facts. ICE reports, congressional records, video clips of Trump signing border security orders, testimonies from families affected by illegal immigration. Everything was real. Everything backed. No fluff, no spin. She wasn't going in to debate feelings. She was going in to unload facts like freight trains. Meanwhile, CNN ran slick promos. Shots of Oprah talking about unity. Clips of Karoline declaring war. 2 women, 2 Americas, 1 stage. The voiceover thundered, "This Thursday, 8 p.m. Eastern. You won't want to miss it." By the day of the debate, the buzz was deafening. Hashtag Karoline Vopra hit the top of X, formerly Twitter. Church groups hosted watch parties. RV parks tuned in with lawn chairs and popcorn. Bars filled with seniors cheering every promo clip. Karoline's face was on mugs, shirts, banners. Conservative influencers called her the voice we've waited for. Even Donald Trump posted on Truth. Social Karoline is a warrior. She'll win this. And as the hour drew near, America waited. Older viewers, especially those who'd raised families, paid taxes, served in uniform, watched the country change. They felt something stir. They'd seen Reagan debate Mondale. They remembered Nixon versus Kennedy. But this felt different. This wasn't about policies on paper. This was about values on trial, and Karoline Leavitt had stepped forward to defend them with facts in one hand and fire in the other. She didn't do it for likes. She didn't do it for cameras. She did it because she knew someone had to. And when the lights went up that night, when the music hit, when Anderson Cooper introduced the guests, America wasn't just watching. America was choosing. And Karoline was ready to stand, ready to speak, and ready to go face to face with Oprah Winfrey and show the nation what happens when truth doesn't flinch. The stage was set. The country was split, and inside CNN's Manhattan studio, the lights dimmed just enough to create tension you could feel in your chest. At precisely 8:00 p.m. Eastern, the music hit. Anderson Cooper appeared on screen, his face tight, his voice even. Good evening, America. Tonight, two powerful women take center stage, Oprah Winfrey and Karoline Leavitt, in a debate the whole nation has been waiting for. Cut to the studio. On the left sat Oprah Winfrey, dressed in a crisp navy blue blazer, calm, composed, but with a tightness in her jaw that didn't go unnoticed. On the right, Karoline Leavitt, hair pulled back, black suit, hands folded, eyes locked forward like a fighter stepping into the ring. No pleasantries, no small talk, just silence and heat. Then Cooper began. Ms. Winfrey, last week on Daily Talk you called former President Donald Trump, but he never finished the sentence because Karoline leaned forward, turned directly to Oprah, and cut in. Let's skip the warm-up, Anderson. Oprah called President Trump a disaster. I'm here to show America exactly how wrong she is. Gasps rippled through the studio. Oprah raised an eyebrow. The crowd leaned in. And Karoline didn't wait. She reached into her folder, pulled out a sheet, held it high for the camera. ICE data. 176 violent criminal illegal immigrants deported under President Trump in just one fiscal year. You want to talk about protecting families? That's what real action looks like. Anderson tried to jump in. Miss Leavitt. But Karoline was rolling. Unemployment in manufacturing dropped to 3.1%. Energy jobs surged under Trump. Wages rose for blue-collar workers. That's not theory. That's not emotion. That's reality. And Oprah, from your $88 million mansion, maybe you missed it, but regular Americans lived it. The studio froze. Then murmurs. Then applause from some. Booing from others. It had begun. Oprah sat straighter, finally speaking. Her voice smooth, confident. Karoline, I know you love statistics, but I've met the children who cried when their parents were taken in the middle of the night. I've spoken with mothers who never saw their husbands again. If that's security, I don't want it. The audience clapped louder this time, but Karoline didn't flinch. She leaned closer. You're telling stories for sympathy, but I'm telling facts for the future. Boom. Those deportations you hate. They protected American lives. Ask the families who lost loved ones to illegal immigrant crime. Do they care about your unity speeches when their kids didn't come home from school? The studio erupted, half cheers, half gasps. Anderson raised a hand, trying to restore order. Miss Leavitt let Mrs. Winfrey respond. But Karoline wasn't done. She turned to Oprah. You live in a tower of television gold, but we live in reality. And in reality, President Trump brought jobs back, defended the border, and stood up when you and your friends chose Hollywood over Heartland. Oprah took a breath, her expression firm. She shot back, her tone calm but cutting. I don't live in a tower, Karoline. I listen, and I care. You quote numbers. I sit with people. She turned to the crowd. Millions gained access to health care under the Affordable Care Act. Millions of small business owners, especially women and people of color, started companies during the Obama years. Don't erase that. Polite applause followed. But Karoline was already lifting another page. Let's talk small businesses, Oprah. During the Obama years 1 and 5, said they couldn't afford to hire because of rising premiums. Obamacare didn't lift them, it buried them in red tape. She tapped the paper. Don't talk about lifting people when you ignored the economic pain of the middle class. Trump didn't ignore them. He delivered. The tension tightened. Anderson tried again. Ladies, Karoline kept going. And one more thing. You mocked Trump's marriage on live TV. That's low Oprah. That's cheap. You don't win debates by gossiping like a talk show tabloid. A few oohs echoed from the audience. Oprah's lips tightened. But Karoline wasn't done. I'm not here to play your Hollywood games. I'm here to defend a man who stood tall for Americans when others just gave speeches. Oprah looked at Cooper. This isn't a debate. It's a monologue. Karoline smirked. It's called facts. They hit hard, don't they? For the next 20 minutes, they went blow for blow. Oprah. America needs healing. Karoline, America needs truth. Oprah, policies must have heart. Karoline, heart without order is chaos. Each point drove the crowd into deeper division. Some clapped for every emotional beat. Others shouted yes at every stat Karoline unleashed. Anderson Cooper, normally cool as ice, was visibly sweating. Let's stay focused, he pleaded. But this debate had no breaks. Oprah launched one final defense. This country needs unity. Not anger, not deportations, not cruelty masked as courage. Karoline didn't blink. Unity doesn't mean ignoring danger. It means defending Americans first. She looked at the camera. And that's what President Trump did. The room exploded again. Applause. Boos. Shouts. Standing. Sitting. Chaos. And through it all, Karoline sat still, eyes locked, hands still folded, unmoved, unshaken, unapologetic. This wasn't just a debate anymore. It was a reckoning. And as the segment ended, Anderson tried to rap. Thank you both for... But Karoline leaned forward one last time. Let's be clear, I came to defend truth. If that hurts, maybe it should. Fade to black. America was already choosing sides, and the war of words had just gone nuclear. The tension had been building for nearly an hour. Every exchange between Karoline Leavitt and Oprah Winfrey had hit harder than the last. But what came next? No one saw it coming. Karoline had just unleashed another fact, another hard-hitting stat about crime jobs and the real cost of feel-good politics. Her tone, cold, sharp, relentless. Oprah tried to respond, tried to keep her signature calm, but something shifted. Her voice cracked. Just slightly. She looked across the table, her gaze still strong but her breath unsteady. Karoline. She said her words slower, more fragile. You can throw numbers at me all night, but you don't understand the pain, the real pain of poor Americans. The audience fell silent. That single sentence broke through the noise. But Karoline didn't pause. She didn't soften. She didn't give Oprah a second to reset. Instead, she leaned in, her voice lower but somehow even more powerful. Oprah, don't talk to me about pain. I know exactly what pain is. I've lived it. I've worked with families who can't afford gas, can't find work, and who've been ignored by people like you. People who sit in mansions and pretend they understand suffering. Gasps. Some clapped, others booed. The room cracked in half. Karoline didn't blink. I stand with the forgotten Americans. You stand with elites who pretend to cry then fly off in private jets. Don't lecture me on struggle when you haven't had to worry about a grocery bill in 40 years. Oprah opened her mouth, but nothing came out. She looked shaken. For the first time all night, the woman known for her poise had no words. And that's when the crowd erupted. Half stood and clapped for Karoline like she'd landed a knockout punch. The other half jeered, shouting, "Let her speak and show some respect." It was chaos, absolute chaos. Anderson Cooper raised both hands. "Please, let's keep this civil," he pleaded, sweat now visible on his brow. No use. The studio had turned into a battleground. The audience had split into two nations, one cheering every strike Karoline landed, the other furious that Oprah was being pushed to her limits. And in the center of it all, Karoline didn't move. She stayed calm, collected, almost surgical. "You say I don't get it," she said, locking eyes with Oprah. "But what you really mean is you can't believe someone like me would dare challenge someone like you." Oprah clenched her hands, her knuckles white against the table. But Karoline kept going. "You built an empire telling people to embrace truth. But tonight you ran from it." Boom. That line hit like thunder. Oprah tried again. Her voice came back, but softer, more uncertain. "I've never run from truth," she said. "But I don't believe in attacking people to make a point." Karoline shook her head. "Then maybe you should have thought of that before mocking a former president's marriage on daytime TV. Maybe you should have remembered the power of words before you used yours to insult millions of Americans who voted for him." The audience roared again. Tom Anderson tried to intervene, voice raised. "We need order, folks. Please, let's show respect to both." But no one heard him. Because Karoline wasn't done. She pulled another document from her folder. "This is a Department of Homeland Security report. Over 2,000 violent crimes committed by illegal immigrants in just 1 year of the Obama administration. These are real victims, real families. You call Trump's border policy cruel. I call this failure." She tossed the paper on the table like a final warning shot. Oprah looked down at it. Her eyes didn't move for a moment. Then finally she looked back up, but her voice had changed. It was shaky, strained. "You think that shouting facts makes you right, Karoline. But leadership isn't about noise. It's about lifting people up." Karoline shot back instantly. "Lifting who, Oprah? Who did your side lift? The criminals. The rule breakers. I'm not here to comfort lawbreakers. I'm here to stand with law-abiding Americans who've been abandoned." The room cracked again. Cheers. Boos. One person in the front row stood and yelled, "Tell it, Karoline." Oprah turned to Anderson. "I'm done debating someone who thinks aggression is leadership." Anderson looked trapped. He opened his mouth, then closed it again. Because Karoline stood up. She didn't yell. She didn't smirk. She just spoke. "I'm not aggressive, Oprah. I'm honest. And that's what scares you." Silence. Heavy, final. Even the crowd quieted. Because in that moment, America felt it. Something had shifted. Karoline Leavitt had pushed the icon of daytime television into a corner. Not with insults, not with emotion, but with unrelenting facts and a refusal to back down. And as Oprah sat breathing hard, her hands still trembling slightly, Karoline remained standing. Strong, steady, unapologetic. The crowd didn't know whether to clap or cry. But one thing was certain. This debate had just crossed a line, and it would change everything. The debate was still live when the first tremor hit the internet. At exactly 8:54 p.m. Eastern, just moments after Karoline Leavitt's now iconic line, "I'm not aggressive, Oprah. I'm honest. And that's what scares you." Someone clipped the moment, posted it to X, formerly Twitter, and hit send. In less than 3 minutes, the video had over 40,000 views. By the time Anderson Cooper wrapped the show with a visibly rattled Oprah and an unfazed Karoline sitting in stunned silence, the number had climbed to over 2 million. And then, like a match dropped into dry brush, everything exploded. The hashtag Karoline defeats. Oprah shot to the top of trending topics, knocking out everything else in its path. From politics to pop culture, nothing could compete. In Phoenix, it trended before the show even ended. In Florida, retirement communities watched the clip go viral between commercials. By midnight, it had gone worldwide. Meme after meme hit like clockwork. A still frame of Karoline pointing at Oprah. When you come for Trump, but get steamrolled by a 27-year-old with a binder of facts. Another showed Oprah with her head lowered, hands clenched, captioned, "When you realize the White House press secretary did her homework." Every clip, every comeback, every cold fact circulated at lightning speed. The internet didn't just react. It erupted. Within 45 minutes of the broadcast, Donald J. Trump posted to Truth Social. All caps, bold, "Karoline Leavitt did a fantastic job tonight. She beat Oprah with facts, strength, and truth. MAGA is proud. America is proud." The post exploded. Within 10 minutes, it had over 50,000 likes, 22,000 reposts, and a wave of celebratory comments from Trump loyalists across the country. Fox News broke in with a live segment. Host Sean Walker opened with no hesitation. Karoline Leavitt just gave a masterclass in composure, clarity, and courage. She didn't just survive that stage, she dominated it. Clips ran side by side, Karoline quoting ICE data. Karoline calling out Hollywood hypocrisy. Karoline turning every emotional plea into a factual counterpunch. Fox's headline at the bottom of the screen, "Leavitt wins debate." Oprah stunned. Meanwhile, conservative site Breitbart published their lead story. Karoline Leavitt emerges as new GOP star after humbling Oprah on CNN. They called her fearless, undeniably prepared, and the future of conservative communication. Across YouTube, political channels began live streaming reactions. Titles read like digital fireworks. Karoline ends Oprah in 90 seconds flat. Best debate moment since Reagan. How a 27-year-old press secretary shook the media elite. But it wasn't just the right celebrating. Even independent commentators couldn't ignore what had just happened. One viral post from a centrist account with over 1 million followers read, "I don't agree with Karoline politically, but let's be honest. She just out-argued Oprah on live television." At CNN headquarters, the mood was tense. Producers huddled, analysts whispered. Even on camera, the tone was different. Anchor Eli Morales tried to salvage it. Look, Oprah remained composed. But there's no denying Karoline controlled the room. Even MSNBC, typically a stronghold for progressives, had trouble spinning it. One segment on the Rachel Hammond Hour admitted grudgingly Karoline Leavitt had command. Oprah seemed overwhelmed. But behind the scenes, panic was brewing. Liberal strategists scrambled to control the narrative. Damage control memos went out. Phrases like emotional intelligence and grace under pressure were deployed, but none of it stuck. Because America had already made up its mind. By morning, Karoline's clips had hit 15 million views across platforms. Oprah's emotional appeal had maybe 1.2 million, and many comments underneath weren't kind. People weren't just watching. They were choosing. Retired teachers in Pennsylvania emailed families saying, "I've never seen anyone take on Oprah like that." Vietnam vets in Texas played clips over lunch at the VFW hall, shaking their heads in disbelief. One 68-year-old posted, "She spoke for us." Finally, even local newspapers picked it up. The St. Louis Tribune ran the headline, "Karoline Leavitt. The night America found a new voice." But perhaps the biggest surprise came from within the White House. A senior communications staffer speaking on condition of anonymity told a journalist, "The president was watching." He smiled. Then he said, "She's got it." Insiders confirmed it later that morning. Karoline was summoned to the Oval Office. She walked in still in the same black suit from the night before. Trump stood, shook her hand, looked her in the eye. No one, he said, has ever done that to Oprah. She smiled just slightly and replied, "I did it for you, and for America." He laughed, clapped her on the back. "You're not just press secretary anymore. You're our secret weapon." By noon, Karoline Leavitt was the most searched name in America. More than Oprah, more than Biden, even more than Taylor Swift. The left tried to spin it. They said Oprah didn't stoop to Karoline's level, that she remained dignified. But the internet didn't care. Optics weren't everything impact was, and Karoline had made hers loud and clear. She didn't just defend Trump. She didn't just challenge Oprah. She shifted the culture. A 27-year-old press secretary had done what seasoned politicians, cable anchors, and commentators hadn't dared. She faced down a cultural titan and came out standing taller. For millions of older Americans watching, those who'd served, sacrificed, raised families, and watched their country change, Karoline spoke their language. No frills, no pandering, just truth. Delivered with fire. The debate was over, but the moment wasn't. Oprah sat silent. Her hands still folded, her face unreadable under the blinding studio lights. Around her, the air felt heavier than ever. Even Anderson Cooper, normally poised, was speechless, unsure how to close out the most talked-about broadcast of the decade. And across from Oprah sat Karoline Leavitt, still standing, still steady, still sharp. She turned slowly toward the camera, not to the moderator, not to Oprah, but directly to the American people. Her voice didn't shake. Her words didn't wander. America doesn't need more tears from Oprah Winfrey. We need action. Full stop. The studio froze. No one clapped, no one booed, because no one expected that line. But every word hit like a hammer. Karoline didn't blink. She didn't soften. She just stood there, owning the moment. It wasn't flashy. It wasn't rehearsed. It was just raw, bold truth, the kind older Americans hadn't seen in years. And then, silence. Oprah didn't respond. She didn't push back. She didn't smile. She didn't recover. She just looked down, exhaled, and didn't say another word. For someone who had owned the airwaves for 4 decades, who had once captivated presidents, Hollywood, and millions of households every weekday at 4 p.m., it was a moment unlike anything America had ever seen. She was done. Karoline had gone toe-to-toe with one of the most powerful women in media and walked away with the upper hand. CNN rolled to commercial. The debate was officially off the air, but the story, it was just getting started. Outside the studio, the press was already waiting. Dozens of reporters stood behind barriers. Flashbulbs lit the sidewalk like lightning. Microphones extended like spears. And then the doors opened. First to emerge, Karoline. Calm, confident. Same black suit. No makeup retouch. No PR handler in sight. Just her. Walking straight into the noise. A reporter from the Boston Herald leaned in with the first question. "Karoline, do you think you were too harsh?" She smiled. Briefly. But it wasn't sweet. It was steel. "I did what needed to be done," she replied. "Oprah couldn't handle the truth. That's not my problem. It's hers." Boom. Sound bite of the night. Cameras clicked like mad. Other reporters shouted follow-ups. "Did Trump tell you to be aggressive?" "No," she shot back. "President Trump doesn't need to tell me what to do. I stand with him because I believe in what he built, and I'm not afraid to defend it." "Any regrets?" someone asked from the back. Karoline didn't even glance in that direction. "The only regret I'd have is staying silent." Then she walked away. No handlers, no spin, no retreat. Just Karoline walking down the steps of CNN headquarters into the night. Her head high, her message clear, and her place in history sealed. Inside, Oprah was still in the green room, but she wasn't giving interviews. In fact, she wasn't saying anything at all. Her team tried to shield her from the press, but they didn't need to. Oprah had already said everything she came to say, and Karoline had answered louder, stronger, and with more impact than anyone imagined. A few reporters tried to approach, but Oprah waved them off. She exited quietly through a side door, avoiding cameras, walking briskly to her black SUV. No statements, no rebuttals, just silence. And for millions watching at home, that silence said it all. Back on cable news, the commentary spun in real time. Fox News ran the headline, "Leavitt closes with a knockout, Oprah silent in final seconds." Even some liberal pundits admitted reluctantly that the ending had been decisive. "She didn't just win one," MSNBC analyst muttered. "She dismantled Oprah's entire argument and didn't flinch. The internet didn't wait." Clips of Karoline's final words, "We need action," not Oprah's tears, went viral instantly. YouTube thumbnails read, "Karoline's closing line ends the debate," and Oprah's credibility. "No mercy." Leavitt's final blow leaves Oprah speechless, the greatest mic drop in modern political debate. Older Americans, in particular those who had seen dozens of elections, watched decades of TV legends come and go, recognized what they'd just witnessed. Not just a generational shift, not just a debate, but a turning point. Because in an age of scripted answers and emotional distractions, Karoline had brought something different. Truth. With teeth. And it hit home. The next morning, the ripple effects were still growing. Newspapers across the country, many of them traditionally moderate, featured Karoline's photo on the front page. The Chicago Sentinel wrote, "Winfrey quiet, Leavitt loud, but it's the silence that spoke volumes." The Dallas Courier ran a one-line editorial, "America just met its new conservative voice." In diners from Indiana to South Carolina, people played the clip of Karoline's final line over pancakes and coffee. One man in a diner booth said, "That's how you talk when you believe in something." A woman across from him nodded. "She's not like the others. She doesn't bend." That night, Karoline returned to Washington. At her press office, a staffer handed her a printed-out tweet from President Trump. It read, "Karoline Leavitt didn't just defend me, she defended America. That's why she's going places. Fast." Underneath, Trump had scribbled a note by hand, oval, "Tomorrow, 9 a.m. Karoline smiled, not out of pride, but because she knew this wasn't the end. It was just the beginning. The final verdict wasn't delivered by a judge or a panel or even the network. It came from the people, from the applause of veterans, from the quiet nods of grandparents who'd seen it all, from the simple statement of a World War II vet who said, "She reminded me of what this country used to sound like." That's what hit hardest. Because Karoline Leavitt didn't just take on a media giant. She reclaimed a voice millions thought was gone. And in doing so, she lit a path forward, not just for her party or her president, but for a generation that still believes in truth, strength, and unapologetic American courage. Oprah brought emotion. Karoline brought facts. And in front of millions, the truth stood taller than fame. This wasn't just a debate, it was a defining moment. For every American who still believes in courage, clarity, and common sense, Karoline's voice rang loud and clear. If you believe in standing strong when others stay silent, this is your place. Don't miss what's coming next. Hit that like button, tap subscribe, and turn on the bell so you never miss a story that cuts through the noise. We're just getting started.